Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spirituality and Business Interview Series. I have with me today the amazing Amy Scott Grant. Amy is a spiritual ass kicker. She helps people get unstuck by permanently clearing blocks, doubts, fears, and limiting beliefs. So I am so happy to have you with us, Amy, and I see that you've got your book behind you, Pendulum Mojo. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Hey, Zach, thanks for having me out today. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to meet everybody. I always like talking with fellow entrepreneurs, right? Because let's be honest, we're kind of an odd breed, right? Like, I don't know about you, Zach, but I have pajama pants on today, right? Like, my business on top, relaxation and yoga on the bottom. So, and the entrepreneur is pretty much the only person, right? When you go, wait, what day is it again? Right?
I know. Yeah, I have no concept for what a weekend is anymore.
So yeah, I got some books. I'm kind of busy, right? Like I think I wrote.
It sounds like it.
10 books in 5 years.
Wow! Holy crap!
I don't know. And I have novels coming out too. I haven't even told you about that. My first novel I wrote 6 years ago. It's a middle grade fiction novel. See how I go off topic like that? But I'm excited about it. It's a middle grade fiction novel about a young girl who's like 9 or 10 who is waking up to her own spiritual path and her own intuition.
All right.
And the catalyst that prompts that and everything. And so that's like super fun. And then just earlier this month, I wrote I don't know what it is. It's definitely a novel. And I've read a lot of fiction in my day. Writing fiction's these are all nonfiction. Writing fiction's like a whole different animal, right? But I told my husband, I was like, because I was finishing the book, I go, I don't know what this is. Like, I kind of thought it was going to be sort of like a spiritual romance novel, but now I'm like, I've never read a romance novel, so I'm like, I don't know. So he's like, Amy, it sounds like you're going to have a bunch of people read it, tell you what it is. I go, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. So I don't know if you like fiction, Zach, but if you do, let me know and we'll get you a copy once the draft.
My partner does. My partner's a fiction writer. I'm not actually, I don't read fiction anymore, which I know sounds weird, but it's true.
No, I totally get it. I stopped reading fiction, God, like I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And then you start reading books like this, like nonfiction, spirituality, or like or like how-to, or read a lot of how-to books, right?
Oh, yeah, so much. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, right? Anything I want to learn how to do. And then fiction, I don't know, I kind of feel like the more fulfilling and exciting your life gets, like the less you maybe feel the need to write fiction or to read fiction rather, but that's probably not a good thing to say for a fiction author.
I mean, everyone has their own path and all that. I'm sure that like fiction authors, there's some people where they never stop loving it or something. My partner writes young adult fiction, which is something that I'm just completely not aware of. And so my partner will ask me for advice. I'm like, I am not your target audience. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You don't want my advice.
Exactly. It's like angst, tortured. I get it, right? Like you think back, you go, everybody's been through that, right?
Yeah.
But
it's like, I try not to think about that anymore. I'm past that. Stop bringing it up.
I know. And I try to get my kids to read it, right? And they're like, I don't know. But they're like big readers. Wait, but this is funny. So so I have 3 kids. The youngest is 7. And he sees this one and he goes, oh, she's pretty. Can I read that? I go, you sure can. It's called The Lightworker's Guide to Getting Started, right? And my business partner, Terry, and we wrote this specifically for people that are like just waking up, right? And they have all different kinds of occupations, although I will say a lot of them are nurses. And they're like, I'm hearing things. I hear my name, when I wake up in the morning before I'm fully awake, I hear someone calling my name. There's no one there. They're sharing like all these experiences that all of us who are intuitive have had at one point or another, right? So we wrote this book for the main purpose of helping people understand, like, no, you're not going crazy. You're actually having a very common experience, especially now as things are moving into, I don't know how familiar you are, 5D, fifth dimension, right? Like, as all of that is shifting, there's more and more people waking up.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, she's pretty. Can I read this? I go, yeah, you can. So he's 7. He's a
Aw.
professional actor though, so you have to watch out for him. So he comes in after reading the introduction. He goes, "Mommy, this is very good." I was like, "Thank you, Adam. A lot of people seem to think so." So yeah, kids keep us humble, right?
Oh yeah. And it's interesting to me that you mentioned that a lot of them are nurses, because I actually just a few months ago saw someone, and he teaches like really mindfulness and kind of meditative, that side of spiritual practices. And he mentioned that he's recently been getting a lot of doctors and nurses using his techniques and coming to his classes and all that. He initially started out focusing on actors, then included entrepreneurs, and now doctors and nurses are getting into it. So it seems like that shift is just happening.
It definitely is, because in fact, Terry, the Lightworkers Guide, my partner on those books, she's a nurse. She works in the ER, right?
Amazing.
Like a trauma nurse. And of course she has like 50 million other certifications in that realm too. But I think what's happening is, nurses are like, they already know that they want to help people. They want to heal, right? They just want to make you feel better. They're very caring and empathetic people. And the bureaucracy in healthcare is getting just exponentially worse, right? Like that actually was my like corporate America job out of college, was hospital administration.
Oh, wow.
So like I've seen like that whole side of it, right? And then Terry's like on the front lines, right? She's seeing the frontline side of it. And she's like, she tells me that all the time. She's like, Amy, this is why if one of my kids is sick, I usually call her before I call the pediatrician, right? And I'm like, hey, should I take her in? Like, what should I be worried about this? She's like, no, it's fine. Give her this. Or yeah, I take her in, or but watch out for this and this. Yeah. Because she said that's why you always call your doctor or nurse in the family, right? Because you don't know what's going on in these hospitals. And so I think these natural born healers are looking for a different outlet to continue making a difference, but they're getting really frustrated with the system. Yeah. Right? Which a lot of people are right now.
And that's definitely something that I've seen with midwives, especially, at least just for my personal experience. Like I've seen a lot of people who are trying to find a way to get out of the, in their opinion, overly routinized medical system so that they can work with people from that heart place and deliver the care that they genuinely feel is necessary.
Yeah. And besides nurses, it's interesting because I've been doing this, I don't know, like 12, 14 years, something like that. And by this, I mean, master intuitive healer, like permanently, my sort of gift is that I permanently clear blocks, doubts, fears, limiting beliefs. I'm not like big on labels. So like, people go, oh, is this, what do you call this? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to be clear or not? Like, that's what I do. In fact, I had a client yesterday ask me that. She goes, what do you actually call this thing you're doing? And I go, I don't, does it need a name? And she's like, no, I guess not. Like, you really just want it to work. I go, yeah, it's not super convenient for marketing to not have a name for what it is, but I've sourced a lot of my own methods. And I'm like, you think as a writer, I'd want to like put a label on everything, right? But it's just, I don't know, it's becoming, I feel like our society, you could watch our society move in that direction, right? Like everything's becoming where labels are less and less important, which I do think is more and more frustrating to like advertisers and marketers who have to fight even harder to get our attention. But I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in the Deep South. And when I was a kid, it was like a big deal to see like an interracial marriage. You know, it was like a big deal. Probably not in other parts of the country then, but for sure in New Orleans in the Deep South, right? And now it's like you know, everybody looks like a Benetton ad almost. Well, not you and me, Zach. We look like super white. We can't help it, right? But yeah, it's like so colors have blended. Now gender is blending, right? It's like everything, we're becoming, I think as a society, we're having less tolerance for labels. And those who are still like clinging to that need to categorize and label are really like struggling with that, right? It's like it's really pushing their buttons and their understanding of how they sort of categorize and look at the world. So, which I think is why, you know, like with the Lightworkers Guide books, I think that's why this is so timely. It was like, this is why we kind of like had to put this book out right now. Lightworker's Guide to Getting Started just came out in May, and then Lightworker's Guide to Grounding like 6 months later. Like it's
Oh, wow.
in pre-launch
Beautiful.
now. So, but thank you. But these books were like pushing to come forward. Like the time is now. People need this, and that's what Terry had said. She said, Amy, there's so many people waking up and they're like, what the hell do I do now? Right. Exactly. And sometimes the answer is taking like the business that you're already in, or the career that you already have, or the sort of work path that you've already built, and figuring out how to bring a more fulfilling spiritual aspect to that, or how you can help people at a deeper level, right? Yeah. Like I know a lot of these nurses are like getting Reiki certified. They're not telling anybody they're doing Reiki on every patient, but they are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the patients go, I just feel, you're like the best nurse ever, right? Like I just feel so much better with you. And they're just like, thank you, and they move on to the next one, right? But so sometimes it's just blending it into what you're already doing. But a lot of people are seeing like, it's time for a whole, like they are really at a fork. And they're ready to go in a completely different direction and really take that, which can be terrifying, right?
Yeah, it is. But
like, what did you do before this, Zach?
I'm not an example of someone for whom it was terrifying. When I was 18, I started my first business as an online store. And so I've always been pretty go with the flow. Like I've always had a very strong connection with my spirituality and my spirit guides. So fortunately, it's all been fairly natural, aside from my own personal resistances, which, in my experience, everyone has to some degree. So fortunately, I haven't had that, oh God, I have to give up something for my spirituality. But I've known so many people who do. Like I've known people who grew 6-figure businesses and then woke up one day and realized they had to shut it down because it just wasn't aligned with them. And that's like the hardest thing they've ever had to do. And so I'm hearing more and more people who have to walk away from these incredibly, like on paper, perfect careers. I actually know a woman, a friend of mine, I can't remember if she like got through med school or if she just was, I know she was in med school and she woke up one day and realized, I don't want to be a doctor. And now she's a spiritual healer. And of course, she's doing amazing work. She's incredible at what she does. But she had to go through the process of getting into med school and then go, oh crap, this is wrong.
Like Michael Crichton, right? Do you know that was his story, like the famous author.
The name doesn't sound familiar, but I've seen so many.
He wrote Jurassic Park.
Oh, wow.
And a bunch of other stuff. And he was also the creator of the show ER, which you probably heard.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So, he went to med school. He tells the story, like he has this great book called Travels, which is just like sort of different times in his life. But he did the same thing. Like he went to med school and like literally was there half a semester and thought, this is not, I do not want to do this. But he finished med school. I always thought that story was so amazing, right? Yeah. Because they say like every blade of grass you crushed to get here, like every step you've taken has made you the person you are today. Yeah. And had he not gone, I mean, I think he was like halfway through med school when he realized what he really wanted to do was write.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, you wrote Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and all that, multi-million-dollar movies came out of that, whatever. But would he ever have created the show ER if he hadn't gone to med school? I mean, probably not, because that was one of the most authentic, like, hospital set shows ever. I know I'm quite a bit older than you, so you don't remember like some of the stupid kitschy ones that like, Trapper John MD and like, I don't know, there were a lot of like sort of Doogie Howser. When I was little, it was like Doogie Howser, it was Neil Patrick Harris. No, not Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, I think that was Doogie Howser, yeah. Wasn't it?
No, Neil Patrick Harris was Niles on Frasier, wasn't he?
No, Neil Patrick.
Them mixed up because they have 3 names. I have 3 names, but they confused me with the 3 names.
That's David Hyde Pierce.
That's David Hyde Pierce, right? Who I also love. But no, Neil Patrick Harris. Yeah, it was Doogie Howser.
Yeah.
And it was like weird. It was fun. We watched that because there was a kid on TV. So yeah, we watched that. But anyway, but ER was like authentic. It was like, and so he created that whole concept for that show. And so, And that, like, I mean, that employed a lot of people, and like,
yeah,
a lot of people enjoyed that show. Like, doctors, and when I worked in the hospital administration, like a lot of doctors and nurses used to watch that show because it was that believable. Like, it was that good.
Yeah.
But he may have never created that if he hadn't. But he took a spiritual path too, actually, because in Travels, he talks about, he went through this phase where he wanted to know what was real. Right. And too bad he didn't have Pendulum Mojo, right? He could have tested. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. But he wanted to know what was real. And so he went through this period of his life for, I want to say, like 3 years or something, where he just tried everything, like everything. He went to psychics, he went to palm readers, he went to tarot card readers, he went to spoon bending parties, he went to mediums. And this was like back in the 70s. It wasn't like you could just Google whatever, right? Like, so you had to like seek these people out, and not that I remember the 70s, but anyway, and he wrote very objectively about his experiences, right? And he said, you know, a lot of it was crap, but then, you know, and he was talking about Reiki, only I don't think he called it Reiki, but he was like, I couldn't explain how I felt this, this, and this, right? So he just sort of went in as an observer and like checked all that stuff out. But I think a lot of times half of creating success in our lives has to do with just being open-minded enough to like be willing to go check stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you read The Alchemist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that book, and I love the way it lays it out. And I actually threw it across the room the first time I finished it. But I thought it was a really beautiful point about the importance of the journey. I think I'm almost certain it was Hal Elrod who wrote Miracle Morning, and I'm almost certain it was him, but I remember a writer talking in his book about how he was at a corporate job, pretty sure it was a sales position, and he realized that wasn't what he wanted to do anymore, but he felt it was really important that he basically reach a really high achievement in that position before he moved on, because if he didn't do that, then he felt like he'd be accepting mediocrity, and mediocrity would follow him. And that kind of reminds me of him realizing in the middle of med school that he actually wants to be a writer and saying, no, I started this, I need to see it through to the end.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Like, that's like you know someone, and we both knew like an author who did that. It's like, so maybe it happens more than,
I think
maybe that's why people go to law school to find themselves, right?
Yeah,
like, because they don't really want to be a lawyer, but it helps them put things into perspective or whatever. That's a pretty expensive way to find yourself, I would say.
Yes, but at the same time, if you're finding a path that lets you create Jurassic Park and ER, you're going to make it back. That is a great investment.
Yeah, it definitely paid off big for Michael Crichton. Yeah. I would say that was a good call for him. But so actually, that's why I wrote Pendulum Mojo. It's because we have, wasn't that a nice segue? Did you like that? It was available on Amazon. But it's because we have so many choices and so many decisions that we're faced with. They're not all colossal, right? They're not all, do I go to law school or not? Sometimes it's like, you know, do I feel like a bagel or a donut? But making that little decision changes, you know, where you end up going and who you might meet on the other side of that, right? Because like life can turn into a dime. And I actually tell this story, it's so funny because, okay, so Larimer, which is my favorite stone, which a lot of people mistake for turquoise. I tell this story in Pendulum Mojo about why these tiny little changes or these tiny little choices really shape not only how we navigate through life, but what the outcomes end up being. One of my closest friends I met because it was wearing this ring, right? And it was something, I don't know, our kids were really, really small, and I had just set an intention maybe a week prior that I was like, man, there are like no spiritual people where I live. Like, I don't know any of them. Everybody I meet is like, I don't know, soccer mom or whatever. And that's all fine, you know, but I would love to like go to lunch with somebody that I really connect with and have like, cause my friends are all over, probably you too, right? Cause like we're so virtual today, but so I have friends like all over, but I'm like, but it'd be cool to just be like, hey, let's go get coffee. And then I can actually see them.
Yes.
So I just set this intention. And for whatever reason, oddly, like this town that I live in is extremely Mormon, right? So, which, you know, so it's very clean and there are a lot of kids and things to do for kids to do. So, but like, it's weird, like outside of Salt Lake, I think my county is like, has the second highest per capita of Mormons. I don't know. It's interesting. But anyway, so to me, that was a stretch to say like, I want to meet more spiritual people in this like extremely Mormon town that I live in or whatever. But, you know, which is maybe I just wanted to curse because I like to swear and you can't really do that. It makes some Mormons very uncomfortable. Yeah. So like, you know, you have to be a little bit respectful. But anyway, so I just set this intention and we went to like something and I was sort of there like by accident, right? And she noticed my ring. Like we had been talking a little bit. Oh, hi, nice. Oh, and we had 3 kids, similar ages.
Oh, nice.
And she
perfect.
Says, she noticed my ring and she goes, oh, I like that. Is that Larimer? Which already caught my attention because everybody thinks it's turquoise, right? They don't know. And I go, yeah. And she gave me this look and she goes, there's some people who think that's the lost stone of Atlantis. And I was like, how did she know that? Right? Like, I was like, so of course we became like instant friends. And I was like, that's very true. A lot of people do say that. So we were like instant friends. We're still friends to this day. Right. And now like our oldest are in high school and it's like, but I think, you know, would I have met Jen if I hadn't worn that ring on that day? So these tiny little, I mean, you could call it the butterfly effect or whatever, but sometimes even that feels like pressure, right? Where you're like, oh, I wear this ring, there's a tsunami, and I want that pressure, right? Like, but it's like these little things, right? But you can get bogged down if you're not a super decisive person, or if you're not confident in the choices that you make, or if you've been through some stuff that has you doubting yourself, right? A lot of people, after they get canned or they go through a divorce or they make a big mistake that doesn't turn out good or their life isn't what they thought it would be, they don't feel as confident saying, I want that, I'm going to do that. It's kind of like, oh, I don't know, right? And all that makes us smaller and smaller, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I wrote Pendulum Mojo. Well, the real reason I wrote Pendulum Mojo is I have a low tolerance for repetition. And so I got tired of explaining how to use a pendulum. And so I put videos up on YouTube and those like went crazy. And I was like, really? Because I just didn't want to keep explaining it. So I was like, oh, here's the link. Go watch these videos, whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No,
and my hair is like so crazy. Like if you watch that first video, okay, so there's like 5 pendulum videos on YouTube. And I had like an image makeover like halfway through. So I always tell people, watch all the videos because they get better looking as you watch them. So, it's pretty, and they're just done over like 6 months or something. So, but it's pretty cool. But, but yeah, so Pendulum Mojo is about how to use, I call it truth testing, but it's how to ascertain what's true without like battling inside your head. Like, you know, what about it's not like weighing pros and cons. It's quick. It's easy. Anyone can master it. I've taught many children how to use Pendulum Mojo. Like literally anybody can do this. Yeah. And not only does it help you make choices and decisions, but there's other stuff you can do with it. Like I actually show you how to transform your relationship with money, right? By using just 2 questions and a pendulum, right? And some people prefer muscle testing or whatever. Same concept. It's the exact same concept. Yeah. Right. It's just people, I don't know, a lot of people just resonate more with the pendulum because they think they're like, you know, if they do this whole thing, they're like, oh, did I force that? They don't necessarily believe it as easily as if they're just holding something and it starts moving. They're like, whoa. Right. But I think anything that connects us and gets us, you know, plugged into something beyond the monkey chatter that's in here usually works out very well.
Yes, absolutely. And, on anyone can use a pendulum. I was like 8 when I was first learned how to use a pendulum. So
you're so evolved.
I was kind of fortunate. But yeah, that's why I was saying about how like I never had that, you know, oh, I have to give anything up. And I was like 5, I was talking to trees.
Your parents must be awesome. You're like, let's change subject.
Yep, let's not talk about that.
Well, good for you maintaining that despite not having super supportive parents. I know I'm a recovering Catholic, right? So like I grew up super, deep South, super conservative Catholic family. Like, I really think I was in college before I had an African-American friend, like for real.
Gosh. Yeah.
Was like,
I grew up in Connecticut, so.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So very white area.
Very white.
So, but yeah, my parents were, in fact, I think, how many is this? This is like, I think my 10th. No, I think my 10th or 11th book. I think I had written 6 books before I had told my mom that I was an author. And it was fine. Like I wasn't,
I understand.
Like, I know that sounds like, like why don't you tell your mom? But really I had gotten to, who hasn't worked through mommy issues, right?
Yeah. But sometimes don't ask, don't tell works better.
Yeah. I had gotten past where I like needed her approval, which she can't give because she's super critical, right? Like the day, like I finally, like that light bulb finally went off. One of my coaches actually said to me, why do you keep holding up your greatest accomplishments and knowing she'll criticize them and going, here, mom, criticize this. Criticize this. And I went, oh my God, that's exactly what I'd been doing, right? So like when I had that epiphany and moved past that, I just didn't need to, right? Yeah. But my sister, who's 16 years older than me, she's the one that convinced me. And she kept saying, Amy, mom and dad have mellowed so much. And I was like, but I don't want her to worry, right? Like I was like, she might read these books and, still being Catholic, think, oh, this is like, pendulums and the devil and like whatever. I'm like, I don't want her to worry about my like salvation or like whatever.
Yeah. I've seen
like,
parents
no.
have that.
Yeah, but it's so funny because when we're usually the thing we're most worried about other people thinking isn't at all what they think at all.
I don't know.
It's like we're projecting that onto them and it's causing like distance, whatever. Yeah. And so she was like, Amy, you have to do it because I'm afraid mom's going to come over and like see them on my bookshelf, like all of them with your name and be like, what is this? Right. And then I'm going to be, and I was like, oh, fine. So she kept nagging me about it. And one day I just put them all in a box and shipped them. I didn't put a note. Not for the South. Like you're right. Like, come on. No, none of that. I just stuck it all in a box, brought it to the post office. And like a lot of light workers who live in the present, I have the worst memory ever, right? So I sent it priority. 3 days later, I totally forgot I'd shipped this. Right? I moved on. I was dealing with other shit, dealing with clients. And like in a session.
It's better than 3 days of worrying.
I'll like say something really profound in a client session and they go, could you repeat that? And I'm like, no. I could like try and access it again, but I'm like, I have no idea what I just said, right? But anyway, so I put it all in a box, forget about it, ship it, and 3 days later, priority mail, God bless them, calls me up and she's like, Amy. I go, yeah, what's wrong? What's wrong? She's like, I just got your package. And I'm thinking, oh shit, package. She's like, yeah, I was like so surprised to see you had written so many books. And I was like, oh yeah. Did you read any of them? And you know what she says? This is like so classic, right? This is my like super, super conservative, like non-spiritual mom says, yeah, I thought they were all kind of common sense. I literally was like, but you know what Zach, you know what she was like the most impressed with? This is so crazy. All right, look, I know, stupid Zoom doesn't flip it like Facebook does, so it's backwards. But my publishing company, I needed a name when I started. So the first book I did was 1, 2, 3 Clarity, where I taught people how to clear their own blocks, right? Energy healing, that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I need imprint. Like I need a name for my publishing company. And I wanted like a name. I didn't want a word. I wanted a name. so I used my grandmother's last name, who I never met, by the way. She died before I was born, because my parents had me like super late. But anyway, Liberto Press, right? And I also liked how it sort of suggested liberty and freedom.
That's a really beautiful name.
Yeah, thank you. That whole side's very Italian, right? She was Josephine Liberto. But anyway, and then she started showing up, right? Like, so now I talk to her and stuff when I'm writing. It's kind of like my writing muse. But I was like, oh, kind of wish, when you were alive. Yeah. But anyway, really that's what my mom was like most blown away with. And she was like, Liberto Press. Like, he was like, so. I'm like, yeah, Mom, that's the takeaway. It's Liberto Press. Like, I had somehow buried the lead not because I didn't tell her that I was writing books, but because I didn't tell her it was Liberto Press was the name of the publishing company. But again, that happens all the time, right? Where it's like, we think we don't tell somebody something. I just went through this with 2 clients last week where they didn't want to post stuff on Facebook. Now, Zach, like, how important is posting shit on Facebook when you're launching a business?
Oh yeah, I had to get over that hard freaking core when I brought my business online. At the start of this year, I had like freaking 60 Facebook friends and was locked down, and I had to get the hell over that. Like, that's simple.
It's scary for a lot of people. And I'll tell you, especially a lot of light workers, because, this is not our first time around the block, right? Like, we've been burned at the stake, hanged, Salem witch trial, like blah, 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 blah. Been there, done that with all of it. But social media is like a whole different level of exposure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And so, and for families, I find like a lot of my clients, that's the thing that they're most afraid of is what if my uncle so-and-so sees it, he's super Baptist, or like, what if, Aunt whatever sees it? I know she'll blab and tell the whole family, but like, it's hard. That's a thing that people kind of have to like get over. Yeah. Right. There was no way my mom was going on Facebook. Right. So I could have coasted for probably 2 more decades. Right. Before anybody, but no, I was like, my sister's like, I was like, oh, fine, whatever. Let's just like rip off the Band-Aid. And it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. That happens time and time again. So just last week, or maybe it's the week before, because I was out of town last week, but just recently I told a client that same story, right? About how I packed the books. I think it gets funnier every time I tell it, but anyway, it's a fun story. But, so I told her that story, and she was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, they're probably not. Cause I think somebody in her immediate family was like a Baptist minister or something. So she had a similar concern, but like even bigger, right? Cause like, oh, this is just not. And it turned out to be no big deal. It wasn't even remotely what she thought was going to happen. And she had so much relief when it was over that she did her first Facebook Live.
Oh, wonderful.
Right? Really talking about, and she's not even doing anything that's way out there like what I do. Like, it was like a new moon intention setting ritual or whatever.
Lovely. Beautiful.
So I was like, just tell them you're dating a Native American.
Yeah, and I've been hearing that so much more lately, that people opening up their families and being accepted about it. And I think that that's related to the giant shift that we're all going through, because there are people who even in this lifetime opened up about their spirituality and faced backlash for it. So like, there's been huge shifts, and it's really beautiful to see the love and acceptance that's starting to come out. And when you look at the news, it can be hard to notice that, but it's absolutely, that shift is happening.
That's a reason not to watch the news, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I avoid it.
I think my mom's more upset that I don't watch the news than that I write books about spirituality. And I go, Mom, like, any news that's really breaking shows up on Facebook, like, immediately, right? Immediately. Like, I'm telling you. Exactly. I'm not, because she was like, well, what if something happened in your area? I'm like, it'll be on Facebook. Like, really? What are the odds that it would happen right as I had the news on anyway? I'm like, no. Because she reads the paper front to, like, start to finish every day. and watches like the 12 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock news,
Oh, wow.
11 o'clock. And I'm like, Ma, it's not good. But right. Everybody's got their own path, right? Everybody's got their own, but I do find a lot of times, I mean, obviously like how we grew up for most of us has had a big influence.
Yeah.
And I can remember years ago, probably 15 years ago, when I first started learning about the law of attraction, I had like this anxiety that was coming up around money, right? Because my husband and I were involved in this company, and we'd go to all these conferences. We'd hear all these like amazing speakers and everything. They would all talk about prosperity mindset, right? But I was like, how do I know, right? Because I had grown up Catholic. I was a recovering Catholic, right? I thought, well, I mean, it feels like it felt, I mean, this is before I knew about pendulums and truth testing, whatever, but like it felt true to me, right? Like it resonated as true. But at the same time, my upbringing was saying, but isn't that just how the devil would show up? It would sound good. It would sound true. It would be believable. And I remember I asked God for a sign. I was like, you know what? I need a sign. Okay. Like I need it to be
and that's fair.
and unequivocal, right? Haven't we all at some point asked for that sign in one way or another? And I was like, I need to know without a doubt that, because this feels good to me and I want to follow it, but I need to know without a doubt that I'm on like the correct path, or that I'm not duped. Or something. Yeah. And it was crazy because I wasn't even like, I didn't even consider myself Catholic by that point. But what started showing up, Zach, were like constant, like a constant stream of Bible passages that were about wealth. And not like rich man, eye of the needle, double. No, it was like, it's your birthright to be wealthy. And it's like, and it was like quoting biblical stuff. And I was like, well, shit, I can't argue with that, right? Like if I'm concerned about, growing up Catholic, I'm like, here's all this evidence, and then the more you study prosperity, the more you realize like, if you interpret the Bible properly, it's actually a tool for prosperity.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not very fun to read. So I like other books a little better, but it's all there, right? It's all there. And if you read like Bob Proctor and Catherine Ponder and like Barbara Dewey, all these people, they're constantly quoting it. And you're like, oh, and that was like all I needed. And I was like, okay, that's a pretty clear sign. I'm good.
Absolutely. Yep. And the children's book Pollyanna actually shows that as well, which I like mentioning just because I love the book. It actually talks about how, I think it was over 800, what she calls rejoicing texts of the Lord telling you, like, just be happy.
And it's so funny, right? Because now I have to reread that because that's definitely.
I do suggest like anyone who hasn't read it recently. It's especially if you're into law of attraction, because it's all about like appreciation and looking for the positive in the situation. It's so powerfully shows how this one person's unwavering positivity like just transforms the entire town. It's really beautiful. And
now it's used like her name is used as a derogatory term, right? Like,
I know. I know. I actually didn't read it until I was an adult, because when I was a kid, I'd get called a Pollyanna like as a bad thing. And so I was like, oh, well, I don't want to read this book because apparently it's a bad thing.
And then one day you were like, who is this bitch? I want to know.
I actually saw I don't remember who, but a law of attraction expert suggesting it as a law of attraction book. And I was like, okay, I got to check this out.
How funny. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're wondering if you should read it, like pull out your pendulum, check in, yes or no.
Yes.
Optimal for you to read Pollyanna.
Absolutely. Hey, so thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. It's been an absolutely fantastic chat. It's about time for us to start wrapping up. So I know that you've already talked us through Pendulum Mojo a bit. Is there anything more that you'd like to share about it?
I would say for anyone who feels like they're struggling with clarity, that's really what's in the essence of all of my books. Well, maybe not even the novels, actually, the forthcoming novels. But all of these are to help you get clearer, because what I have noticed over the years is that when people get clear, they get results. And it's not just about clarity, right? Because I use clear twofold. One meaning clarity, right? Being able to see what's actually true and what's so. But the other piece of getting clear means clearing or removing the obstacles that are between where you are now and where you want to go, right? And so when you get clear, you get results. All my books are on Amazon. I would say any of them.
Yep. And there's a link to that below this video, so you can easily find them. And also for anyone watching this, I kind of wanted to make a comment on the fiction. If you're early on this path and you're having some trouble accepting it, and reading a book like Pendulum Mojo feels like it's too far, reading the fiction novels can be a really powerful way to start letting those messages come into you. Like reading fiction can actually be a deeply transformative spiritual experience.
Yeah, and it's funny, my beta readers, because I always have people read books and get feedbacks, and
which is important.
Little subtle changes that really enrich the quality of the writing. Some people have told me this for years, but someone just reiterated it like 2 days ago. She said, Amy, you have to stop thinking that you're just writing books.
Right.
Like every book you write is a healing tool. Exactly. There's so much inherent energy, like the Lightworker's Guide to Grounding Energy is a grounding tool in and of itself. Just having it on your desk gives a more stable presence. And I knew that with these, but it hadn't occurred to me that that was going to happen also with the novels. I mean, why wouldn't? It seems so obvious now. But I totally agree. You can have a life-changing experience from reading a novel or reading multiple novels. Absolutely.
You absolutely can. Yeah, especially for people who are still in the earlier stages where they're not ready to open up to it as a reality. The fiction gives them enough distance that they can be open to the messages, which is really powerful.
I agree. Zach, I just want to thank you for having me out today. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you and getting to know you a little bit better. And it's been so much fun. And I love that you're creating these interviews and these resources for people who are just looking for answers and looking for some assistance. And so thank you for doing that. And if I can be of assistance in another one, I'd love to come back. It was such
All right.
fun.
I'll keep you updated how this continues to unfold, because I'm still finding that out myself. All right. So thank you again, Amy, for being here so much. It's been so fabulous to have you. It's been great to hear about all of your books. Oh my gosh. And also thank you so much to everyone who is watching this right now. Thank you so much for our audience for being a part of this journey as well. It's been fantastic to have all of you. Thank you so much. All right.